Welcome to InnerTV. I'm your host, Althea Provost, and today's guest is Sherry Wilde, a fellow Gray. In this interview, we will explore the contact experience with Zeta Gray consciousness. I'd like to share a little bit about her bio. Sherry Wilde was living an idyllic life as a wife, mother, and business owner until 1987, when her southwestern Wisconsin community experienced a UFO flap that was considered one of the most active in the world. No one could ever have guessed the unbelievable turn of events that would occur over the next 18 to 24 months as Sherry Wilde was forced to accept her involvement in a phenomenon that was totally unknown to her. Faced with the indisputable evidence that she was experiencing contact with extraterrestrial beings was astonishing to this pragmatic and level-headed woman of 37. But to learn her contact had been ongoing for her entire life almost pushed her over the edge. Sherry spent the next several years of her life trying to exonerate the experiences from her mind and did her best to return to normal life. But with heavy contact starting again in late 2009, after several years of relative peace, she could no longer ignore it. Inexplicably, she found herself writing a book about these encounters as her memory opened up to the past events and the teachings these beings had imparted to her. Overcoming her fear and learning the truth of her involvement with these ultra-dimensional beings became her life goal. She now accepts the truth of these encounters and has cooperative contact on a regular basis with the beings she affectionately refers to as her guides. Sherry Wilde is an author of The Forgotten Promise, Rejoining Our Cosmic Family, a book that tells the story of her lifelong interactions with beings from another dimension. Welcome, Sherry Wilde, to InnerTV.
Hi, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Oh, it's a pleasure. In your first chapter, you write about the paradox of the UFO abduction, and I'd like to quote from it. You said, "That is the paradox. The UFO abduction experience are very difficult to unravel due to their very nature. Really, what exactly are we talking here? Little gray imical men coming to your house, through your walls no less, and pulling you from your bed after putting you into an altered state of consciousness, taking you back through the same seemingly solid walls to the silver ship parked on the side lawn for all your neighbors to see, taking you aboard the ship and in many instances violating you and returning you to bed. All this outrageousness, and you're left with no memory and no witnesses, right? Why would anyone doubt the story?" End quote. Okay. I love this chapter. I hope that brings back some memories for you, because we're coming into this space and place with these beings who have, in all capability, the ability to block your memory, to decide when to unblock your memory, to move your physical vehicle, the physical body, as well as your etheric vehicle, in and out of time and space. And as you're going through that, as you stated in your own book, when you move through in and out of space, there are laws governing gravity and how much one can be taken out of their body for how long. And this is a crash course, a cosmic crash course in understanding the ET phenomenon, as well as knowing that as you go through this experience, everybody around you may or may not have the same type of experiences and or not even agree with you that you're having this experiences. So therefore you're left with your own madness and your own psychological unraveling, as well as bits and pieces of memory that don't add up. Would you agree?
You put it beautifully. Wow. I mean, you really get it. That's exactly the way that it is. Your reality, as we've been taught reality to be, what we believe this world to be, it's totally shattered. That's why it was so hard for me, being who I was, a very level-headed and pragmatic business person who lived very much in the matrix and was very aligned with the world as I understood it to be. And things like this just didn't happen. It just wasn't part of my reality. I had never considered it as being a fact. So when I woke up to the fact that I was having these kinds of experiences, it just caused me to spiral out of control. And because I had believed that I understood the world and the way that it worked very well and that I had it all figured out, and this just blew it into a million pieces. So I had to sweep up those pieces and try to put them back together again. And I'm still kind of trying to do that to this day. But what the whole experience has taught me is that we really do live in an illusion. It really is a dream world that we live in. It is not real. It is a hologram, because how else can they do what they do? Because they are physical beings when they come into this world, because they have to be in order to do the work they do. So they're physical, and yet they defy the rules of our world by walking through solid walls and by taking me, a physical 3D person, and walking me. Many times they pulled me through walls or dropped me through the roof of my house back into my bed. And how are they able to do that? But there's a manipulation happening, but it's because there's a different frequency going on, is the way that I finally figured it out to be. There's different frequencies. And I liken it to, I have a lecture that I give where I show us the spectrum of light, and going from one all the way up through to the dense all the way to the lighter. And the spectrum of light is, we only see such a tiny, tiny little piece of it. And I think that there's a statistic, and I think it's like scientists have determined that we are only aware of, I think it's like 0.1% of our reality even. There's all this going on around us that we're not able to pick up with our limited five senses and with the density that we are. So, yeah, the whole ET contact thing, it's got so many facets to it.
It's a paradox until it's not, and one has to go through the paradox in order to unravel that statement, I would say. Yeah. You have a chapter called So Many Lessons, and you say things like how the ships can go from one end of the galaxy to the other, how the ships fly so quietly, how they can walk through walls, and more importantly, how they can pull me right through those same seemingly solid walls. They taught me how easy it is to heal our body, and showed me that the power of our minds was beyond anything we could imagine. They explained why two people can be standing side by side and see a UFO, and the other person remains totally oblivious. They proved to me that time does not exist. They taught me about vibrations and light that is within us all. Among other things, they told me where they came from and why they're here, and they drilled into me the three important things to know. And before we get to that, I just wanted to, you had more contact experience than I did. One of the things that differs between our experiences, although they're very similar in types of age and coming into that, was I didn't refute it. I didn't have a love-hate relationship with it until my hair was cut at the age of 16 into very severely angled microbangs. And at that point, there were some expletives that came out of my mouth and a sense of like time, it's stop, it's over, like leave me alone. But I was always aware since birth that I came from the stars and that I had an ET family. So I wasn't under amnesia over it. And I didn't really have an opinion over it one way or another. I guess you could say I almost had neutrality on the fact. I looked at this world as one in which was like a video game, because that's what they showed me. They would show me the world being destroyed, and then it would replicate again, and over again. It would go into a destruction phase, it would replicate, and then come back, almost like hitting the stop-start button over and over as they were trying to evolve a human race into the cosmic family once again. So that was my state. But reading yours, I was fascinated by it. And the reason why was because they were giving you lessons, deep, abiding lessons on some of the primers that we forget. And one of them is, why are they here and where did they come from?
I did have a totally different experience than you. I came in to have the human experience, and I remember that that's what I wanted before I came here. So they respected that. So I did come in with the veil, fully in place and not remembering the truth of who I was. As they taught me these things, and they do that with a lot of the contact people, they take us on the ships and they teach us that time does not exist. They teach us all these things. In the book, I talk about how they offered to tell me where they were from, and he told me that they came from Andromeda, and he said it. He said it like with a little bit of an he has a little bit of an accent when I hear him talk, and so he pronounced it Andromeda is how he said that they came from Andromeda. so when I had the book was written and it was at the publisher called me one day and said, Sherry, there's a contradiction in your book that needs to be cleared up. And I said, okay, what is that? And he said, you describe the guys that you interact with as grays. They're described as a typical gray, which means that they come from Zeta Reticuli. And yet in your book, you talk about how they showed you a star map and they said that they came from Andromeda. And I said, yeah. And he said, well, that's not correct. That can't be, because grays are known to come from Zeta Reticuli. Well, I didn't know anything about any of this, what he was saying, because I didn't read anything about UFOs or contact. I hadn't read any books about it. And so this was all new to me, and I wasn't sure what he was saying. And I said, I only know what I know, and I wrote what I know to be the truth of what they told me. So I said, I can't help you out. And he said, well, could you ask them the next time you see them where they are from? And I said, okay, I'll try to remember to do that. So it wasn't very long before I began, and I looked at the being that I know as Da, D-A, Da, and I said to him, my publisher wants to know where you come from. He wants to know, are you a gray? Because you look like a gray. So you must come from this place called Zeta, or you must be a Zeta. And he looked at me and he said, I am what you would call an etheric being. That is, I don't have a body. But when I come in to your world to do my work, I need to have a physical body. So I put on this suit that you know as the Zeta body because it's highly functional. And I said, oh, okay, that makes sense. And I said, well, where would you say, what race are you, or where do you come from? And he said, I am a voyager of the universe, going where needed in service to the Creator. And it just blew me away, And so I never got an answer as to where, what sector or what galaxy or system they were from. That's just the way that he put it. And I've since come to the realization that is who they are. They assist planets that are ascending, moving from one frequency into the higher frequency, and that's what they do. They help with the birthing of the planet and the civilization as they make that sometimes difficult transition, as we are going from third to fifth. So
they're
like the
high five for me, because I feel that way about my own journey, my own walkabout. I understand that the Zeta is a container, and but that there are Zetas. In fact, just a couple days ago, I was speaking with author Judy Carroll of the Zeta Message, and she said, and I quote, there are many different gray cultures and around 30 just in the Zeta Reticuli star system alone. She says, I use the term gray to differentiate the insectoids from the mammalian humans. As far as I understand, the gray insectoids are one of the most widespread cultures in the whole universe. She said the purebred Zetas, or Kevins, are very typical looking of the insect cultures, so people tend to refer to all of them as Zetas. Lots aren't from there. And end quote.
Right. Well, Judy Carroll is phenomenal. She has very conscious recall about her contact, and I love listening to her talk. She just makes it all sound so matter of fact and just an everyday thing, no big deal, So I like that about her. She's very pragmatic. She's
one of the things
great.
that also comes from, like you said, that here they're taking us from density to light. Essentially, that's what they're doing with the planet and also with the souls that have come on to the planet. I'd like to speak to you about that density experience. So when we're going from voluntarily ignorant state, where our memories have been blocked, we are choosing that block, we're coming back through the defragmentation of our memories, coming through that wall. When you've walked through that and coming into observer mode, now that you've gone through all these experiences, being taken out of your car in 1968 and at 16 years old by grays, going up on ships, having taken, going through probably a hybrid experience. Now that all that has gone through, what would you say is the current state of this UFO contact, and do you still welcome it?
Oh, interesting. You ask interesting questions. Yeah, it's been a journey reconciling everything that's happened to me and looking deep into it and trying to find answers that make sense and that aren't just placating me. And my journey has always been about getting to the truth of what's going on here. And little by little, I find that the answers are given to me if I just stop frantically looking for them, if I just sit in silence and let it come to me. I find that if I ask a question, I'm given the answer one way or the other, either directly by my guides or it's revealed to me very clearly in so many different ways, and validation comes. So the way that I look at where we're at now in this whole process, and I look at what the ET involvement is that we have on this planet been in a state of separation. We chose to have that separation from our Creator and have the experience of otherness just so that we could experience it just because. And it's much like a game. Not very long ago, within the last few years, my guys explained to me that this reality is definitely an illusion, which I knew, but they said it's likened to a computer program. And they said basically that's really kind of what it is. And we came into it much like you do a game, just to have the experience of being separate and having free will and having choices other than our living in oneness and in love. So we came here, but the problem was that we some of the souls got stuck here. And so the ET agenda has been, it's like they are our cosmic family. It's not like they are our cosmic family. And when we're all related because, of course, we are all one. So it's kind of like a little bit of a rescue mission, but not really, because I don't want to make it seem like the human souls that have been trapped here needed necessarily to be rescued, but they certainly kind of needed a hand because of the control system that's been in place here is so deeply integrated. Yes, very much. And I will tell you this, that when you're on the other side, when you're out there looking at planet Earth and you're watching what's going on planet Earth, it's really, I do remember feeling like, why don't the humans just claim their power and kick that control system out? Why don't they just claim their power and change the course of their destiny? Why are they putting up with this? Why aren't they doing that? But once you're here, you understand how difficult it is because there's so many distractions and there's so much programming going on and there's so many things. I mean, the controllers had it all figured out, very, very well. And they played a masterful game and used our own power against us. And so many of the souls who have been on planet Earth, doing the reincarnation, getting trapped in that whole game of karma and all that, those lies. And it made sense to them. And now that I was here, and I think that's why I came in, and I did come in with having the agenda to be a human. I wanted to know what it was like to be a human so that we could understand why they weren't willing to help themselves, why they weren't waking up the way that it seemed that they should have. Well, it's because you just don't know. The whole thing made sense that you had to go to work and you had to make money to pay to live on your planet, and that you had to try to be a good person, and that if you didn't, you'd reincarnate and come back and have to pay for your supposed sins and all that. And it kind of made sense, to us. And so you understand why the thought that it could be any different, that we actually should be born free and should flourish and thrive, and after we die, not have to be forced back into this cycle, come back into the body again. But the whole system here has been very difficult to overcome. And there's people even now, even when we're deep into the awakening process, how many people on the planet are still walking around totally asleep, totally unaware of the truth of who they are. So I think the ET involvement has been critical, both with the hybrid program and the volunteer program and the abduction program even. For the most part, not all of it has been positive, but much of it has been positive. In my case, it was mostly positive. But it had to happen that way because the assistance was needed. The entrenchment was too deep and too involved.
I'd like to talk to you a little bit how that assistance Because I don't want to candy coat anybody's experience, especially one where there is psychological trauma. And one of the things that ETs can and sometimes do with contactees is give them the Earth is going to blow experience. And I don't mean blow up. I mean go or diminish or no longer be here. And why do you think they did that with you?
I know why they did it with me, because I was fairly young, and that's a common scenario to take us up and show us the planet being destroyed. And I believe it was to trigger in us a deep remembering of who we are and why we're here, because the whole message of that was, as he looked me in the eyes, was, you need to not allow this to happen. You have to change this. And I was 10 or 11 years old, and I just felt overwhelmed by it. And I got angry about it, but I never, ever forgot that encounter. And it was in my conscious memory, and it had a huge, deep impact on me, because I love planet Earth, and to see that destruction take place was horrific for me. And so it triggered an emotional reaction in me to feel protective toward the planet. And even though I'm just one person, if they do that to millions of volunteers or millions of people, take them up and show them that, which it seems incredible that they would do that, and yet it seems that so many of us had that experience. And Bud Hopkins, I remember him talking about it at a conference and saying that they were doing that to children because the ETs don't have emotions, and they want to study our emotions because they're jealous of our emotions. And I'm so tired of hearing that comment. But I don't think you hear it so much anymore. But when he did say that I was on a quest looking for answers to my own experiences. And as I always will say is, I didn't have time to think about it. What I felt was immediately in my heart. My heart responded with a big, no, that's not at all what is going on. They're doing that to trigger a remembrance deep within us that we came here for a purpose, and the purpose is to serve the planet, to assist her so that this doesn't happen. And it definitely had that impact on me, and I think it does on all of us who see that. It just stays with you. You can't get rid of that sense, that it's almost a sense of obligation that this is your mission. This is at the heart of your mission, and that's why you're here. I didn't come here for the humans. I'll say that. I didn't come here to save, to try to assist with that aspect of it. I came here for Mother Earth. I came here to be of service to Earth. Now, it's certainly the Ascension and helping the humans realize the truth of who they are and all that is a great thing to do. But for me, my mission was totally about being here to help raise the frequency so that Earth could move from third to fifth. And the humans, if they were able to make that decision themselves and awaken and do that, that's great. I know my guys are concerned about that. They talk about the harvest, and they talk about the great earth changes, and that it's going to be a challenging time for humanity. But they're pulling for us. But they seem to not have any real deep concern about whether or not humanity makes it this time or not. They want as many as possible to make it, but they know that all will make it eventually. And so it's just, they're comfortable. They're good with that, Whereas
they see the continuum, and they're part of the continuum, so they understand it from that point of perspective. Right. They understand that life will continue to evolve. You wrote, and I quote, Da continued, "There isn't much time left, and it appears humanity will reach the tipping point, although it could happen. If enough humans reach a certain level of vibration, it is the effect of pulling those of a lesser vibration up. Humanity will not be allowed to destroy themselves or hold the planet back again. Therefore, if you don't reach the saturation level, each and every human being will be given a choice to stay or leave the planet. It is an absolute truth that the Earth will be moving into a higher vibration, and those unable to survive the shift because of their lower frequencies will be taken to a new place to continue their growth at a pace without interference with the Earth's evolution and their fellow human beings' right to live in peace," end quote. I happen to agree with him on some of those levels, and it isn't so much just Da as an etheric being using a gray container. I've spoken with the Orions and various other groups, and they're all saying the same thing.
Yeah. They see it for what it is. it's not life and death, because they know us to be eternal beings, and they know the truth of the whole situation. They understand that this is a game that we're playing, but it's a serious game. But it's not about humanity all ascending together en masse at this time. There have been many other attempts in the past for humanity to move along with planet Earth into the higher frequencies, and it's always failed. It's just always been the control system was too tough, and there was always complications, and so it couldn't happen. This time is the final time. Well,
I'll tell you what that final time looks like for me. Mm-hmm. As I'm called out to the open road, I end up going into darker systems. That is just the way it is. I go into darker systems, and I move that darkness density into light, and that comes through compassion. It comes through pure truth of understanding what it is without judgment, and feeling it to the core of my being, and at the same time releasing it from the core of my being. Much like Gaia acts as a transmuter for us, we are doing the same thing for her. That's how it showed up in my life. How has it showed up for you?
For me, it was more, I had more of a nuts and bolts kind of a mission, I think. I was allowed to live my life as a human up until the harmonic convergence in 1987. And when that happened, I was given basically my marching orders and time to go to work. Up until that point, I had been participating in the hybrid program. They'd been harvesting my eggs, and I'd been having classes on board the ship and laying the groundwork to be in my subconscious mind for when the time came, and I would need to know certain things. So the awakening for me happened in 1987, 88, right in through there. At the same time, this UFO flap was occurring, and I opened up and remembered my encounters. And I was actually supposed to leave at that time, and I don't have that in the book, but we had a meeting in my house. There were three of us. I was one of them, and it was we were in kind of a tall gray type bodies. And I know that they tried to convince me to leave. I had an exit point coming up, and they wanted me to come and work, as they said, work from that side of the fence, kind of, and be on the ship. And I refused, and I cut a deal with them at that time to be allowed to stay. I mean, you always have different options and different choices, but for me, my participation was to, be in the hybrid program, because I have 46 or 47 hybrid children, and it was just my role to do that. And I had a daughter who was supposed to be the one to actually pick up and go from there after I left the planet, but it didn't play out that way. There was interference. There were things that happened, and so I stayed. And I was in exchange for staying, I was given almost 20 years of just respite. There was basically not much interference, and I lived a pretty much normal life, but I did have to agree to have them. I guess I would say they studied human life through my experiences, and they were very involved in me that way. Don't want to go into a whole lot of that, but then came the time when I had to write the book. And writing the book was my contribution to triggering the volunteers who were here who hadn't quite remembered who they were, or who were struggling with remembering their experiences, weren't sure if they were positive or negative. And I agree with you, not all abduction experiences. I mean, it's traumatizing. There's no doubt about it. I mean, we've all been traumatized by it. It's not always harps and rainbows and unicorns. You have to dig deep to find that, because we have that visceral fear of the experience. We all do. And for the most part. And so it's difficult to get to that place. And also the system is set up so that if you do have contact with your cosmic family, you're probably going to have mill labs. And I certainly had my share of those, and they are definitely meant to traumatize you, so you have fear around the whole thing. So you're kind of you're poisoned, from the whole experience. So it's work to dig through all the muck and get to the truth. Part in it has been, I think, to just point the finger at what the abduction experience really is about, to dig deeper and not just accept it as being something that you need to be afraid of. Look beyond that, look behind the curtain and see what the truth is that's been going on.
Right.
Yeah.
I have another question for you. So when they showed you the Earth is on fire, many people have seen very similar things like that as an end result.
Right.
Changed or shifted, or have you been given an update?
Yeah, my understanding is that that's not our destiny now.
Right.
And that our destiny is still to be seen as we create our reality continually by accessing whatever timeline we are on vibrationally. Mm-hmm. So we have all these multiple timelines, scenarios, you can call them, that we can access the one that resonates with our frequency. So certainly that is a possibility, that there is a timeline where the planet does be destroyed again and washed clear. But I don't, I say that, and yet there's a part of me right now, I'm getting to know that that's not true. Because,
see, I feel the same way. And it's not out of naivete, and it's not out of, like you said, unicorns and such.
Right.
It is from boots on the ground as above, boots below, but working towards and working through deeply held belief systems, going into the memories of the subconscious realm and clearing it out and saying, I'm not agreeing to this at all, period. This will not be in my reality. I will not hold this reality. It can be out there, but I will not create it.
Yeah, I'm even getting that you can't access that reality anymore. That
it is dropping off, for sure.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting too, is that no, that is not Earth. It has happened, actually. The Ascension, it's there, and we just need to access it. And that no, there will not be another recycling of the planet Earth as a lower dimensional, lower frequency planet. That's over and done with. Yeah.
Accessing this next level of what has already happened. Since everything has already happened, you and I both know time doesn't exist. So like the book that I'm to write, it's already existed. So it's like getting into that vibrational state and place and beingness to access that. That's what we're going through now. What would you suggest to Starseed if I was to put you in the hot seat and you were to give our Starseed audience some advice, how to access that higher vibratory field where we have ascended and we have moved through despite what's being played around us at this time?
Well, your starseeds know this. I mean, they're going to know what I'm going to say before I say it, because as a starseed, they know that we just have to live through our hearts. We have to be the truth of who we are, and we have to not shy away from that. We have to answer the call and finish the mission as to why we're here, which is to just be loving, be forgiving as in non-judgment, and I know that there's, even just today on one of them, I get these updates from different spiritual sites, and just today I read a thing about, that we're impatient, and we're tired of waiting. We have to remember that this isn't an event that is waiting at the next train stop. This is an event that we access through our frequency, and our frequency is based on how heart-centered are we, how much are we in integrity of who we are. So it's not falling into the fear anymore. It's not buying into the game that's being played, but we see the truth of the world that we're living in, which is that it's just a game, and it's between light and dark, evil and good, and all of that. And so we choose to stay totally in the light, and that's where we keep our focus. And by doing that, and so many starseeds know that, and so many of them are doing it. I mean, I know so many people that they go out every day, like what you were saying, and they go to where they are called to go just to transmute that negative energy and change the frequency of that physical place on the planet. And that's huge. The grids and all of that have to be supported so that this can happen. So we're going to create that ascension, that so-called shift, that's due to happen by accessing planet Earth where she is now, which is already into the higher frequencies. We're only experiencing this darkness because we're still projecting it. So, I like what
Doss said. He said, there is no judgment of good or bad in any of this, he stressed. Those with low light readings just need more time to develop and learn their lessons. The positive and negatives have moved too. And I appreciate that, because that's exactly what Judy Carroll would say. They're just young souls.
Right. And here's the other thing, Althea, I Course in Miracles, and even though I wrote that where Doss said that, they just need more time to learn their lessons, what a lesson is, in all honesty, because the truth of it is that we are all one with the Creator, and we all are infinite beings, and we all at some level know the truth of who we are, and we know all there is to know. So we don't really need to learn lessons. When I hear that thing about needing to learn lessons, I automatically just, in my mind, I change it to wake up. We just need to wake up. We just need to remember. We just need to remember.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah. I just don't like that, because that's part of the programming of the whole karma thing, of that we needed to learn something, that we're less than what we are, and I that's part of the keeping us little and keeping us small.
And the future oriented, that you're not going to have that now moment, which you could have in an instant, which both you and I realize.
Yes. And if you can just be good enough, if you can just get there, if you can just always strive, that's not true. All of that is just lies. We just are amazing creatures, all of us. Every single one of us need to know that and just be it and settle into it. We don't need to keep trying to chase after and learn something or get somewhere. We just need to remember the truth of who we are and be that.
So I'm going to pull a little string, and it's called the paradox, the Gordian knot. And one of the things that come with the paradox and understanding the paradox experiences is, yes, I have experienced my Stargate opening in my heart and seeing my totality of who I am that's beyond cosmic races. And that's amazing and wonderful and awestruck moment for me. At the same time, I'm still aware that I'm a teeny spark in this little body, inhabited female body, human body known as Althea. And she has some quirks. And so I would say that as we come into that grandness of who we are and focus towards that grandness of who we are, for me it was compassion. The other thing is that when I get a hiccup, when I start to notice that I lack in a level of understanding, or I am blindsided to my own, let's say, round and round moments of monkey mind thought, I reach out. And I hope with Starseeds that they will understand that even as myself as a teacher or clairvoyant, I reach out and get help. And the reason I do is because I find that it's through this togetherness of reflecting one light to another, one soul to another, Sherry to Althea, that I'm learning and that I'm growing, and my diamond is becoming more accessible with all the different pivots, that I can see more from or a greater perspective of the wider viewpoint if I interact with and exchange wherever I'm at in a truthful and honest way. Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better. That's beautiful, because that's why I continue to teach A Course in Miracles every week, because that's my touchstone. That's my coming back to myself. Every week I need to do that. And it doesn't matter. I've been really, really sick, and I can't believe it. Even during the time I was so sick, I hardly ever missed a class. I could barely drag myself in there. But when I would sit down with those people, and we would read from the Course in Miracles, and we would have these beautiful discussions, I would feel my body get stronger. And I would leave there, and we have the class every Wednesday night. And Thursday was always my healthiest day. I always had the most energy after having been in that frequency with those people. And that's what we call it. We call it our coming back to remember who we are. We spend 90 minutes together just remembering the truth of who we are and just being that. We shut out the distractions of the world and all the games that are being played out there, and we be in the truth. And it's huge to do that. So when you can share and come together with someone who that raises your frequency, and then you raise theirs, and it just, the whole thing, it's just a beautiful orchestrated piece of how the universe works, which is why having contact with my guys has been so valuable to me, because, and I love that I've spent so much time with them, which is what I asked them to do before I came here. I said, don't you dare abandon me. Don't leave me alone for too long, because I don't want to get stuck in that place. And so they've been in my life so much, but that it's wonderful, because even though it's hard on my body physically to have been going in and out of those different dimensions, coming back from being with them, you carry that with you for a while, having been in that high frequency, and it's good for your soul. It really is good for your soul, and at the same time, maybe not so much for the psychological aspect of having to come back into a denser vibration. So I'll be honest there. You go from love, and then you come back down here, and you're in the hate, the terror, and the dimensional blocks. But at the same time, once you know love as you know it, And once
Right.
I know love as I know it, you can't back down from it. You cannot hide. You cannot shut the door. It is what it is, and it becomes your barometer as well as your set point for how you're going to move forward, period.
Exactly. You use the same terminology I do. That's exactly the wording I use when I talk to my class, is let the higher frequency, live in the higher frequency as much as you can, and let that become your set point. That's exactly the words I use, because we can bring that love that we know. We can create that here. We can make that happen by being the small little spark that we are and sparking others. Don't tell me that other people don't feel that when they come around you, and they feel it when they come around me. If we're in that frequency, I mean, you can't help but affect others in that way. And when we feel ourselves depleted, and we do, we get worn down. My gosh, I've been terribly worn down and felt defeated and felt like I can't get there anymore. I can't do this anymore. You know, there's attacks that happen, and there's other things that distract you and come at you. But you get around somebody who has that frequency, and that's your set point. You know that's where you belong, and it's a healing for you, and it's a healing for the planet. So that's what our role is. That's why it's so critical that there's so many of us here, and then not everybody is called to do what you're doing. You know, to talk with people and to bring this all to light, or to do what I did, write a book. But you know what? Everybody has a high service calling, which is just to be that spark of light in a world that's dark, and it just all makes a difference.
Beautifully said. Thank you, Sherry, for being on InnerTV. It's been a welcome breath of air for me. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks for inviting me. I really enjoyed talking with you. Yeah, you asked some great questions, so I enjoyed it very much. Thank you.
Thank you. If you'd like to know more about Sherry and her work, please visit theforgottenpromise.net. Links are provided below. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more InnerTV interviews. Thank you again, Sherry. And until next time, everyone, bye-bye.